You're listening to the Partisan Comms Podcast.
There is a signal broadcast every second of every day through our television sets.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Welcome to episode 15. I'm Terrence. The Parents Music Resource Center, also known as the PMRC, was a committee founded in 1985 with the primary goal of increasing parental control over children's access to any music deemed to have explicit content, such as violence, drug-related, or sexual themes. The PMRC was established by 4 women, often referred to as the Washington Wives due to their husbands' prominent positions in government. The founders were Tipper Gore, wife of Senator and later Vice President Al Gore; Susan Baker, who was the wife of Treasury Secretary James Baker; Pam Hauer, wife of Washington realtor Raymond Hauer; and Sally Nevius, wife of former Washington City Council Chairman John Nevius. The PMRC eventually grew to include 22 participants before shutting down in the mid to late 1990s. In an article titled "The Parents Music Resource Center: From Information to Censorship," the PMRC's intent is described as educating and informing parents of this alarming new trend towards lyrics that are sexually explicit. Additionally, the PMRC viewed some modern music lyrics as being responsible for increased rates of social problems affecting America's youth, including rape and violence. The committee asserted that they were not attempting to promote censorship, only that they were trying to save children, and that some regulation of the music industry was needed to protect American values. One of the catalysts for the formation of the committee were lyrics from a Prince song titled "Let's Pretend We're Married." In that song, there's a verse containing sexually explicit content. Additionally, after hearing this and watching music videos such as Van Halen's "Too Hot for Teacher," Tipper Gore and the other committee founders decided something needed to be done about how the public, more specifically children, are exposed to certain musical influences. In addition to the concern over sexually explicit lyrics, the PMRC formed in response to growing concerns among parents about themes of violence and drug use. The committee aimed to educate parents and encourage the music industry to adopt a voluntary labeling system to warn consumers about explicit content. The founding members were not just disturbed by Prince and Van Halen. Other artists they took issue with included Madonna, Twisted Sister, and many others. The committee claimed they weren't angling for government action, but they did want to grab the attention of the Recording Industry Association of America, also referred to as the RIAA. After the PMRC's initial attempts to get the attention of the music industry failed, they changed tactics. They began to use media attention as leverage to pressure the RIAA, as well as use their political ties to arrange congressional hearings on explicit content in music. On September 19, 1985, the culture war culminated in a Senate hearing which featured testimony from artists Frank Zappa, Dee Snider, and John Denver, who testified against the proposed labeling system. One of the PMRC's most notable actions was the creation of the Filthy 15 list, which highlighted the lyrical content of 15 songs they deemed objectionable. The full list consists of the following songs: Darling Nikki by Prince, Sugar Walls by Sheena Easton, Judas Priest's Eat Me Alive, Strap On by Vanity, Motley Crue's Bastard, Let Me Put My Love Into You by AC/DC, Twisted Sisters' We're Not Gonna Take It Anymore, Dress You Up by Madonna, Animal by Wasp, High and Dry by Def Leppard, Into the Coven by Merciful Fate, Black Sabbath's Trashed, In My House by Mary Jane Girls, Venom's Possessed, and She-Bop by Cyndi Lauper.
Mr. Snyder, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here. I don't know if it's morning or afternoon. I'll say both. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Dee Snider. That's S-N-I-D-E-R. I have been asked to come here to present my views on, quote, the subject of the content of certain sound recordings and suggestions that recording packages be labeled to provide a warning to prospective purchasers of sexually explicit or other potentially offensive content, unquote. Before I get into that, I'd like to tell the committee a little bit about myself. I'm 30 years old, I'm married, I have a 3-year-old son. I was born and raised a Christian, and I still adhere to those principles. Believe it or not, I do not drink, I do not smoke, and I do not do drugs. I do play in and write the songs for a rock and roll band named Twisted Sister that is classified as heavy metal. And I pride myself on writing songs that are consistent with my above-mentioned beliefs. There are many facets to this complex issue, and time does not permit me to address all of them. However, my feelings are expressed for the most part by the August 8, 1985 letter to the Parents Music Resource Center from Mr. Stanley Gordikoff, President of the Recording Industry Association of America. This letter was a formal response to the PMRC's petition of the RIAA. The only part of this document I do not support is Mr. Gordikoff's unnecessary and unfortunate decision to agree to a so-called generic label on some selected records. In my opinion, this should be retracted. Since I seem to be the only person addressing this committee today who has been a direct target of accusations from the presumably responsible PMRC, I would like to use this occasion to speak on a more personal note and show just how unfair the whole concept of lyrical interpretation and judgment can be, and how many times this can amount to little more than character assassination. I have taken the liberty of distributing to you material and lyrics pertaining to these accusations. There were 3 attacks in particular which I would like to address. Accusation number 1. This attack was contained in an article written by Tipper Gore, which was given the form of a full page in my hometown newspaper on Long Island. In this article, Ms. Gore claimed that one of my songs, Under the Blade, had lyrics encouraging sadomasochism, bondage, and rape. The lyrics she quoted have absolutely nothing to do with these topics. On the contrary, the words in question are about surgery and the fear that it instills in people. Furthermore, the reader of this article is led to believe that the 3 lines she quotes go together in the song, when, as you can see from reading the lyrics, the first 2 lines she cites are an edited phrase from the 2nd verse, and the 3rd line is a misquote of a line from the chorus. That the writer could misquote me is curious, since we make it a point to print all our lyrics on the inner sleeve of every album. As the creator of Under the Blade, I can say categorically that the only sadomasochism, bondage, and rape in this song is in the mind of Ms. Gore. Accusation number 2. The PMRC has made public a list of 15 of what they feel are some of the most blatant songs lyrically. On this list is our song, We're Not Gonna Take It, upon which has been bestowed a V rating indicating violent lyrical content. You'll note from the lyrics before you that there is absolutely no violence of any type either sung about or implied anywhere in the song. Now, it strikes me that the PMRC may have confused our video presentation for this song with the meaning of the lyrics. It's no secret that videos often depict storylines completely unrelated to the lyrics of the song they accompany. The video for We're Not Gonna Take It was simply meant to be a cartoon with human actors playing variations on the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote theme. Each stunt was selected from my extensive personal collection of cartoons. You'll note when you watch the entire video that after each catastrophe our villain suffers through, in the next sequence he reappears unharmed by any previous attack, no worse for the wear. By the way, I'm very pleased to note that the United Way of America has been granted a request to use portions of our We're Not Gonna Take It video in a program they are producing on the subject of the changing American family. They asked for it because of its, quote, lighthearted way of talking about communicating with teenagers, unquote. It is gratifying that an organization as respected as the United Way of America appreciates where we're coming from. I've included a copy of the United Way's request as part of my written testimony. Thank you, United Way. Accusation number 3. Last Tuesday, a public forum regarding the lyric controversy was held in New York. Among the panelists was Ms. Gore. Trying to stem the virtual tidal wave of anti-rating sentiment coming from the audience, Ms. Gore made the following statement, quote, "I agree this is a small percentage of all music, thank goodness, but it's becoming more mainstream. You look at even the t-shirts the kids are wearing, and you see Twisted Sister and a woman in handcuffs sort of spread-eagled," unquote. This is an outright lie. Not only have we never sold a shirt of this type, we have always taken great pains to steer clear of sexism in our merchandise, records, stage show, and personal lives. Furthermore, we have always promoted the belief that rock and roll should not be sexist, but should cater to males and females equally. I feel that an accusation of this type is irresponsible, damaging to our reputation, and slanderous. I defy Ms. Gore to produce such a shirt to back up her claim. I'm tired of running into kids on the street who tell me that they can't play our records anymore because of the misinformation their parents are being fed by the PMRC on TV and in the newspapers. These are the only 3 accusations I've come across. All 3 are totally unfounded. Who knows what other false and irresponsible things have been said about me or my band. There happens to be one area where I'm in complete agreement with the PMRC, as well as the National PTA, and probably most of the parents on this committee. That is, it is my job as a parent to monitor what my children see, hear, and read during their preteen years. The full responsibility for this falls on the shoulders of my wife and I, because there is no one else capable of making these judgments for us. Parents can thank the PMRC for reminding them that there is no substitute for parental guidance, but that is where the PMRC's job ends. The beauty of literature, poetry, and music is that they leave room for the audience to put its own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the words. The examples I cited earlier showed clear evidence of Twisted Sister's music being completely misinterpreted and unfairly judged by supposedly well-informed adults. We cannot allow this to continue. There is no authority who has the right or the necessary insight to make these judgments. Not myself, not the federal government, not some recording industry committee, not the PTA, not the RIAA, and certainly not the PMRC. I'd like to thank the committee for this time, and I hope my testimony will aid you in clearing up this issue.
The PMRC's efforts were met with mixed reactions. Supporters praised the initiative for prompting parental awareness and protecting children from inappropriate content. Critics, however, argued that the labeling system amounted to censorship and it infringed on artistic freedom. Musicians and free speech advocates contended that the labels could stigmatize artists and limit their creative expression.
Mr. Snyder, let's suppose that there is music which, say, glorifies incest, not yours. Let's suppose that there is some music that glorifies incest. Do you think that, parents should know about it? Or do you think that it's just a matter between whoever's selling the record and whoever's buying it?
As I said in my testimony, I think it's very important that parents be aware of that these lyrics exist.
How could they find out about it?
Well, quite simply, as a parent myself and as a rock fan, I know that when I see an album cover with a severed goat's head in the middle of a pentagram between a woman's legs, that it's not the kind of album I want my son to be listening to.
Right.
If I read a title on the back of, say, somebody said Ice Cream Castle, a title called If the Kid Can't Make You Come, whatever it is, I realize that's a sexually explicit song. By just looking at the cover, looking at the lyrics, looking at the, I should say, the titles, that should cover just about all bases. The few albums that do not express their intentions on the cover or in the song titles, I think a parent could take it home, listen to it, and I don't think there's too many retail stores that would deny them the ability to return the album for something different.
Do you think that that most parents or even kids, for that matter, know everything that's on an album when they buy when a child buys an album.
I don't know half the things that are on half the albums I own.
Right.
Some of the bands I listen for musical reasons. Other bands I listen to for lyrical reasons. I know that AC/DC, one of my favorite bands, sings a lot of songs glorifying hell and damnation. I'm a Christian. I don't believe in, I don't want to go to hell, and I don't want to be damned for all time, but I do like the feel of the songs. The lyrics have no effect on me. Other bands who have more to say, I listen to their words and I learn from their words.
Do you think that now there is adequate basis for parents to know what's on the records that their kids are buying?
I think if they really are concerned, there is. But quite honestly, I don't think that the majority of parents are in reality as concerned as the PMRC or myself. I don't think they really want to spend the time to listen to what they might consider to be a bunch of noise. You know, they put it on and they can't understand the thing that's being said anyway. So I think most of them don't spend enough time with it.
Senator Gore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, are you going to tell me you're a big fan of my music as well?
No, I'm not. I'm not a fan of your music.
I'm sorry, Mr. Gore.
I'm aware that Frank Zappa and John Denver cover quite a spectrum, and I do enjoy them both. I am not, however, a fan of Twisted Sister, and I will readily say that. Mr. Snyder, what is the name of your fan club?
The fan club is called the SMF Friends of Twisted Sister.
And what does SMF stand for when it's spelled out?
It stands for the Sick Motherfucking Friends of Twisted Sister.
Is this also a Christian group?
I don't believe that profanity has anything to do with Christianity.
It's just an interesting choice because I was getting the impression from your presentation that you were a very wholesome kind of performer, and that is an interesting title for your fan club. In Surge, you say your song, Under the Blade, is about surgery. Have you ever had surgery with your hands tied and your legs strapped?
The song was written about my guitar player, Eddie Ojeda. He was having polyps removed from his throat, and he was very fearful of this operation. And I said, Eddie, while you're in the hospital, I'm going to write a song for you. I said it was about the fear of operations. I think people imagine being helpless on a table, a bright light in their face, the blade coming down on them, and having totally afraid that they may wake up, who knows, dead, handicapped. There's a certain fear of hospitals. That's in my imagination, what I see the hospitals like.
Is there a reference to the hospital in the song?
No, there isn't, but there isn't a reference to a woman, sadomasochism, or bondage, yes, I'm sorry.
There's just a reference to someone whose hands are tied down and whose legs are strapped down, and he's going under the blade to be cut.
Yes, there is.
All right. So it's not really a wild leap of the imagination to jump to the conclusion that that's about something other than surgery or hospitals, neither of which are mentioned in the song.
No, it's not a wild jump, and I think what I said in one part was that songs allow a person to put their own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the lyrics. People can interpret it many ways. Ms. Gore was looking for sadomasochism and bondage, and she found it. Someone looking for surgical references would have found it as well.
Yeah. Why do you think there is so much sadomasochism and bondage in some of these new songs?
I cannot speak for the other artists. I'm only here to defend myself, and hopefully by speaking for myself as one person, songwriter, and a band that I feel has been unjustly dumped on, that will just warn us of the dangers of what we're trying to do here. I really can't speak for the other bands.
Now, you made reference to a comment about T-shirts. I would simply note for the record that the word T-shirts was in plural, and one of them referred to a Twisted Sister, and the other referred to a woman in handcuffs, and was not intended, as I understand it, to say that you appear with a woman in handcuffs. In fact, there are a lot of different T-shirts and advertisements, In fact, I've noticed from some of the fan magazines of particularly heavy metal that little sadomasochistic outfits are advertised with the fingerless gloves and spikes and studs on them, and that these little S&M outfits are marketed to teens and preteens. Is that correct?
Well, they are marketed. Who buys them, I'm not sure. I'd just like to say, in reference to the comment about T-shirts, I have with me a taped cassette of the exact...
No, I'm reading from your transcript of it in your statement.
I have to check the transcript, but again, I'll say when it was said, there was no question she was referring to a Twisted Sister T-shirt. There was no question if I played the tape for anybody.
In your own transcript, it's plural T-shirts, and 2 examples are cited, but I don't want to belabor that point. Now, you said that you can look at the titles of albums and look at the covers and tell what kind of material is inside. Does the title Purple Rain give you an indication that the material is about masturbation?
Do you mean the album title, Purple Rain?
Yeah.
Not the song title.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I didn't say in all cases. I believe I covered that, those occasional albums that are a bit misleading. That, like I said, I don't think a store would refuse a parent who came in and said, I don't like what's on this record, I would like my money back.
So the choice the parent has, then, is to sit down and listen to every song on the album, right?
Or read the lyrics if they're on the record.
What if they're not on the... I mean, I think there's pretty general agreement that if the lyrics are printed, that's one possible solution for this. Let's suppose the lyrics aren't printed. Then what choice does a parent have? To sit down and listen to every song on the album?
Well, if they're really concerned about it, I think that they have to.
Do you think that's reasonable to expect parents to do that?
Being a parent isn't a reasonable thing. It's a very hard thing. I'm a parent and I know. Okay, I'm a new parent. I only have 1 child maybe, but I am learning that there's a lot to being a parent that you didn't expect. It's not just, oh, isn't baby cute? There's a lot of labor and a lot of time and a lot of effort that goes into it. It's not totally pleasurable. Yeah,
and you'll find when they get a little bit older that when they're exposed to the kinds of themes that we were presented with earlier, that if you love your child, you're going to be concerned about that. And if you want to protect that child from unnecessary exposure to inappropriate material, you sometimes need a little help, the kind of guidance that is presented in the movie industry, and it is totally unreasonable, in my view, to expect parents to come and sit down and listen to every single song in the albums that their children buy in order to fulfill their responsibilities as parents. Now, the only thing that I felt at all comfortable about in your statement was when you said that you shared some of the concerns of the PMRC. I would simply hope that, or end by expressing the hope, because my time has expired, that artists and record companies will find a way to manifest that concern in some self-restraint and show of responsibility to give parents a break. You're right, it's tough being a parent. It's even tougher being a kid. If both are going to be able to deal with the kind of material that's coming out in popular music, it seems to me the industry has a responsibility to give them a little help. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rockefeller.
Mr. Snyder, how would you, do you feel that you have a responsibility as an artist in terms of those words that you write, a responsibility for those who would hear those words?
I feel a tremendous responsibility, and as I said, I don't put anything down on a record that I can't stand behind in my beliefs 100%. I don't sing about drugs, sex, alcohol, because I don't advocate sexism, the use of drugs, and drinking. So I don't write about those things. I only write about things I believe in.
And that's the way you define what your responsibility is? That is, not to write about things that you don't believe in?
Yeah, that's how I define my responsibility. To write about things that you can stand behind. I feel myself to be a moral person, and I think that I have a lot of positive things to tell people about. And everything, like I said, on my records, I will stand there and say, yes, I wrote those words, and this is what it meant, and this is what I was trying to say, yes.
Do you think that, parents, not only those who are in PMRC, but other parents who are concerned here and across the country about the development of new trends in music and the lyrics that go along with that music are naive or somehow missing the point? Do you think that they're unduly worried about some of the developments and writings about sadomasochism, suicide, rape, other things? I mean, do you think that's really not that serious a problem for this country and our young people?
That's like sort of a multiple question. I don't think they're naive, and I don't think that at times they're unduly worried, but I do think sometimes they take it overly serious. I mean, there are monster movies on all the time. They've been going on for ages, and people watch a monster movie and they get scared and they walk away, and it was just a movie. Rock and roll, and many times, is the same thing, trying to get an effect either of laughter, of sadness. A lot of the heavy metal bands are trying to scare people and just make them just like a horror movie. Vincent Price isn't getting have problems because he's done all these monster pictures. He's just an actor. I'm not going to say I'm just an actor, but I am entertaining people, and a lot of these bands are entertaining people. And when they were reading some of these lyrics before, I couldn't help but laugh. I mean, I hadn't heard some of them, but some of the lyrics were ridiculously ridiculous. I mean, you know, and a kid, even a kid reading that, I think would go, oh my God, what's going on? You know, it's ridiculous. The only word I can think of. Some of the lyrics.
In the vehemence with which you attacked Senator Gore's wife, I detected sort of a defensiveness somehow on your part, sort of a lack of unsureness of where you stand in this. Why did you feel it necessary to attribute some of the qualities to her that you did? Why was that important to your testimony?
First of all, I wasn't attacking Senator Gore's wife. I was attacking a member of the PMRC. Okay, I was
Senator Gore's wife by name.
Oh, her name is Tipper Gore, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't say the senator's wife. I said Tipper Gore. Okay. Secondly, defensive. I've been working very hard. I believe in the music I play. I believe we have a very bad reputation. I've been doing a lot on my part to try and say, hey, this isn't a bad thing. This is fun. This is fantasy. Kids are coming out. They're screaming. They're yelling. They're letting out their emotions, and they're going home and they're feeling better because they let out a lot of their frustrations. As I said, I pride myself on writing lyrics that are not offensive and that are saying something positive. Most of my songs are about personal freedom. And when somebody tells me, after all I've done to fight against sexism, that I've got a shirt with a spread eagle woman, or it says
to fight what?
All I've done to fight sexism. We steer clear. The whole Twisted Sister thing is a very ambiguous. Guys wearing makeup. We don't act like women. We act like men. We don't cater to the males or females in the audience. It's just one audience. So when someone says there's a song about sadomasochism and bondage, or someone says we're not going to take it, is violent lyrical content, which is what it's been rated for. Yes, I'm defensive. Yes, that gets me angry. I'm trying to get adults to see that heavy metal is not totally a bad thing.
How many months in the course of a year do you spend on the road, away from home?
In the course of a year, it would be tough to say. Over a 2-year period, because I would spend about 11 months on the road and 13 months at home recording an album, things like that, doing videos.
11 months on the road in a 2-year period?
Yeah, because you do a tour and then you go in and record albums. I've been off the road now for 10 months.
You take your child with you?
He comes sometimes. Some of the shows.
Your child, 9 years from now, when your child is 12 and in school, will you take your child with you?
Absolutely.
When your child's in school?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying. No, I would not take him out of school.
And how will it be possible for you to, as a responsible parent, to spend the time that you suggest going through and listening to these records and finding out what it is that you want your son to listen to and what you don't want him to listen to?
To be perfectly honest, 9 years from now, I'm going to be well retired. And I'll be spending more time with my son than any other parent probably ever spends. That's one of the beautiful things about rock and roll, is that I can retire hopefully at a very early age. But even now, I'm very lucky that I have a wife who I've been going with for 10 years now. We've been married for 4, who is this incredible mother. And she, when I'm gone, fills the role, has a very difficult job, too, of mother and father.
Does she go through these, do you expect later on then that she'll be going through these records?
I think both of us will be doing that.
You expect me to believe that?
Oh, you can. I'm terminally teenage. I'll be listening to my son's records. And
What about parents where both parents have to work, which is an increasing phenomenon in this country now, because they have to survive? And the whole notion of parents sitting down and listening to record after record, tape after tape, doesn't that really strike you, and that's what you suggest, doesn't that strike you as just a little bit naive and unrealistic?
No, I don't, because I know the reality of the record buying market. As a record buyer, with my allowance, I was able to, if I was lucky, afford maybe 1 album a week at the most. Usually it was 1 a month. Albums cost anywhere from $6 to $10, and that's a lot of money to a teenager, to a pre-teenage. It's a ridiculous sum. To a teenage kid, you know, that's a considerable amount of money. So to listen to 1 record a week, I don't consider that a hardship.
Senator Pressler.
Just one final question, Mr. Chairman.
Bearing in mind that it's 12:30 and we have a lot of witnesses left, yes.
Well, then I won't ask the question. I'll bear that in mind and won't ask the question.
Thank you. Senator Pressler.
In addition to the group's political ties, their formation received financial help from Mike Love of the Beach Boys, as well as assistance from the owner of Coors Beers, Joseph Coors, who offered office space to the PMRC. The mid-1980s was the height of the Reagan presidency, and conservatism was gaining popularity. When the PMRC formed, they leveraged conservative talking points to help push their agenda. One of the tenets the group pushed was the idea that private industry was fully capable of regulating itself based on both morals as well as the free market. However, by using conservative values as leverage, the motives of the group were criticized by many as insincere and political, and an attempt to censor the habits of American consumers. To combat negative perceptions of the PMRC's agenda, they suggested a voluntary move by the music industry to create a rating system much like the existing system in place for the Motion Picture Association of America. Additionally, the PMRC suggested printing warnings and lyrics on album covers, which would require retailers to place content with explicit album covers under the counter, as well as pressure radio and television stations not to broadcast songs that were deemed to have explicit content. The impact of these suggestions would cause record labels to reassess the contracts of their artists and likely lead to a panel which would determine industry standards.
The National Mental Health Association estimates some 14 million children.
And you think
are
the
at
music
risk.
contributes to more of the problem?
I think the music always sets a tone for a generation.
But
and
this
we
is,
have
this
to be
is the
aware
eternal
of it.
question, though, Tipper. Doesn't the music reflect what's already going on?
The thing of it is you have to swallow this as a whole thing. You got to swallow the whole pill. You listen to my album, you got to swallow the whole pill. The problem with Ice-T is I say don't do drugs, go to school, don't go to jail, love you, brother, but I happen to like Freddy Krueger. If you open up a Playboy magazine, I'm going to look in it. So in other words, what I do is I show you a whole person. Everybody has a vice to them, but I show you the whole person. The problem is when you show the High Rollers video, you show the part that has nothing to do with the actual, that video was about don't be a high roller. At the end of that video, I ended up dead. You know? So, it's 2 sides to everything. NWA has a record that says the police. He has another record that says express yourself.
Say I was a father and my kid brought home something I really, really objected to, like a Skinhead record or a Toy Uzi or even a Guns N' Roses record with those lyrics on it. I would not immediately go crawling to the phone to call the cops or call Tipper Gore. I would not put my kid in a mental hospital for the kind of music they listen to. I would not send them to some deprogramming center, blame it on the music. What I would do is sit down with the kid and say, okay, you spent your own money on this. Why? What does it mean to you? Why do you like it? Is it the tune? Is it the rhythm? Is it that cool bass player? Tell me why you like it, and I'll tell you why I don't like it. I think the most evil part of the PMRC and people like Tipper Gore and Jesse Helms is they play on the fears of parents who are too chicken to talk to their own kids.
Proponents of the PMRC included Senator Paula Hawkins, who presented copies of album cover art by Def Leppard, Wow, and Pyromania, as well as the music videos for Van Halen's Hot for Teacher and Twisted Sister's We're Not Gonna Take It. The senator had stated, quote, "Much has changed since Elvis's seeming innocent times. Subtitles, suggestions, and innuendo have given way to overt expressions and descriptions of often violent sexual acts, drug-taking, and flirtation with the occult. The record album covers, to me, are self-explanatory," end quote. Susan Baker testified that, quote, "There certainly are many causes for these ills in our society, but it is our contention that the pervasive messages aimed at children which promote and glorify suicide, rape, sadomasochism, and so on, have to be numbered among the contributing factors," end quote. And Tipper Gore asked record companies to voluntarily place warning labels on music products inappropriate for younger children due to explicit sexual or violent lyrics.
Soon after came Elvis and Little Richard and Buddy Holly and Jerry Lee Lewis and the Beatles, and with every set, the grown-ups warned of dire consequences to America's young people. It continues right up until today. Today's parents are wary of the so-called heavy metal music, the Motley Crue, Twisted Sister, Black Sabbath. Adults believe that these groups and others are chanting the praises of Satan, sex, death, and rebellion to an audience of confused teenagers. Well, whether it's what we want or not, it's what we're getting. And to talk about this kind of music, here now is Sis Levin, who is the Executive Director of Parents Music Resource Center. Its stated purpose is to establish ethics in musical production. In November of the last year, the center, the recording industry, and the PTA caused records that have reference to explicit sex, violence, or drugs to contain a warning label. With Sis today is Donny Osmond, who needs no introduction whatsoever. He is a noted singer, and his albums have never had to have a warning label, to my recollection. And with him is Kim Richards, the president of Allied Artists Records. Now, you've all seen the call-in number on the screen, and because today is a school holiday, I hope that we'll hear from the younger set who listen to the music we're examining today. Sis, I want to begin with you because your organization and the others I mentioned, the PTA and the recording industry, help to get these so-called warning labels on records. There are some people who view this as censorship. Why do you believe it's not?
Well, because it's strictly in the field of consumerism. It was agreed between the Parents Music Resource Center and the recording industry that it would be a good idea to give a consumer tool to consumers. It was a voluntary agreement, and that's not censorship.
You know, there are warning labels on lots of things, and people buy them anyway and use them. A notable example is cigarettes.
Right.
What good are these labels going to do, realistically?
Well, obviously, they do some good. There are some people who like to have that clue, like to have that tool, and you just do what you can. There are no perfect solutions, do you think?
No, I don't think there are any solutions at all. I think there are only attempts at solution. We live in a frail and...
But we need to try, don't we?
Misunderstand. Yes, we do. Do you want to come over here and...
Well, I'm learning too,
I
and this is an educational process. We're all love children, and we're all concerned about them, and we're thinking out loud. What's good about it is that we are able to think out loud and reach solutions together. Nobody has every answer.
Donny Osmond, you are probably a person who will have his career not affected at all by this sort of thing, because your particular...
That's where you're wrong.
I'm wrong there?
That's where you're wrong.
Because your kind of music is... it needs no warning label. It is
but
what it is.
That's where you're wrong. Sis, I understand what you're trying to do, but I think it's a stupid way to go about it. Because it is, because what you're doing is, if I was forced to put a G rating on my album, that's death to me.
Others who testified regarding the influence of music on behavior was a music professor from the University of Texas at San Antonio, Dr. Joe Stussy. Stussy argued that heavy metal was different from earlier forms of music such as jazz and rock and roll because it was church music, and the central elements of today's content is hatred. Notable respondents to the PMRC were musician and producer Frank Zappa, as well as musicians John Denver and Dee Snider from Twisted Sister. During his opening statement, Zappa asserted that the PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children, infringes the civil liberties of people who are not children, and promises to keep the courts busy for years dealing with the interpretational and enforcement problems inherent in the proposal's design. In John Denver's testimony, he referred to the proposed labeling system as censorship and stated he was strongly opposed to the censorship of any kind in our society or anywhere else in the world, and that in his experience, censors often misinterpret music, as was the case with his song Rocky Mountain High. In November of 1985, before the hearing concluded, the RIAA agreed to put parental advisory labels on selected content at their own discretion. However, many stores, such as Walmart, refused to sell albums displaying the label, and others limited sales of albums with the label to adults. It's uncertain whether the labeling system was effective in preventing children from being exposed to explicit content. Some cited the forbidden fruit effect, suggesting the sticker would have the opposite effect and increase the sale of those albums. The fallout of the hearings prompted many artists to criticize as well as parody Tipper Gore and the PMRC.
How can radio stations broadcasting across the country be scared of a bunch of assholes like the PMRC? And what do you really think they're going to stop? These people would get laughed off the face of the fucking earth in England. I can't understand it.
They wouldn't last 2 days in England.
I cannot understand it. I just don't believe that anybody could attach any importance to what a bunch of shitheads like that have to say about anything.
Despite opposition from artists and others in the music industry, the PMRC's efforts led to the adoption of the Parental Advisory Explicit Lyrics label by the RIAA. The labeling system became a standard feature on albums deemed to have explicit content. The PMRC continued into the 1990s, however, they eventually disbanded as the music industry and public attitudes changed over time. While the PMRC's methods and impact on the music industry were controversial, they played a significant role in shaping the discourse regarding explicit content, and the committee's legacy remains evident in ongoing debates regarding parental control and censorship, and it also underscored the complexities of balancing artistic freedom with societal norms. Anyway, that's all I have for this episode. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, or write a review.
There is a signal broadcast every second of every day through our television sets.
Mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes.
Science and technology are propelling us forward at accelerating rates.
Engines throttling up, 3 engines now at 104%.